Hello, hello, people. We are live. We are going live with Sarah Wilson. She is for Amazon Books, and we're going to talk about the best books on Amazon's list for 2023 September, y'all. So if you were looking for some good titles, we got you. Sarah!
Kathryn, how are
Oh,
you?
yay, technology at its best. It's working.
That's great. Yay.
Today,
I'm good. How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm so excited to chat all the books with you. I
Yeah.
was before we got together today. The biggest question I have to start with is how many books do you read a week, a month? I mean, you must be like,
Um,
how do you do it? How do you do it?
uh, so many books. It's hard to say like on a weekly or monthly basis, but over the course of the year, this whole team, the editorial team, we read over 1,000 books. So some months are heavier than others. September and October, huge months for publishing,
Sure.
great books. So yeah, that's
Do you
how we
have
do it. We all read
tips
and
for how to absorb content while still getting through pages quickly?
no, I mean, we've all been doing this for so many years. We have like over 100+ years of experience between us. So you you get in the rhythm of it and you really get a sense for the writing and the author and the story. And a good book, like I won't stop reading. I'll sit there and just plow through it in 6 hours. You know how it is.
I
All of you guys do.
so okay. Okay, so you have this amazing team of readers that's constantly coming up with these monthly groupings of the best
Hmm.
picks. So will you just talk me through where do you start? Like, what is the pool of books that you begin with to even consider who might make this list?
So we take a look at, like right now, we're looking at November. So we look, a couple months ahead, and we just sort of identify the books that are bubbling up, debut authors we want to check out, um, big books from different publishers, small, large, small, just across the board. And then we kind of divide it up amongst ourselves. And then we just meet up weekly and, multiple times during the week. We talk about books just like you do. We just get together and chat about what we're reading. And oh my gosh, I read the best passage in this book. And we just narrow it down to try to find the absolute, best of the best each month. So there's something for every reader on our list. So it's the best books of the month. And the whole purpose of that is to find really great books for people to pick up and read and love and look for their next one.
And I know that you specialize in young adult children and lifestyle. Does that mean
Mm-hmm.
that we're never going to see any adult picks from you, or do you dabble in that as well?
I do both. Yeah, I love all of it really. So I read for our adult list, obviously. So you'll always pretty much every month you'll see at least one review from me on our top 10 list. And I read everything. My coworkers really tease me because I do the kids books, but I love anything that's like about the mafia or opioids or all of that stuff too.
Really light stuff.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly. A little light, a little dark.
of the list, y'all, if you can see this, I've got it pulled up on my computer here. So we've
Oh,
got
lovely.
the September list that we have going on if anyone wants to jump onto Amazon and take a look as we're talking about all this. So on the list that we have for September right now, is there one title in particular that you are just so excited to share and
Oh,
fun to read right now?
I mean, this month is so good for September, and all the books are also on, Amazon Best Books, backslash Best Books, so you can see everything. And there's category picks too. So we have our top 10, and then there's also like a top 10 in mystery. And so for our overall top 10, I mean, one of my favorites is Amazing Grace Adams,
Amazing.
and it's a debut. Hmm. It's one of those books that you fall in love with the character really immediately. It's this woman,
Right.
Grace Adams. You meet her. She's kind of at her wit's end. She's kind of just lost it, and you go backwards from there. Kind of what's happened to bring her to this place, and it's about getting older and your life changing and your family and your relationships, and it's so relatable. She's one of those characters that you just root for, even in these moments where she's kind of a mess, and
Hmm.
you sort of think, ah, you know what, I've kind of been there. I think a lot of us have those moments where you just feel like you can't take it anymore, and then you do. You find your way.
And this is written by Fran Littlewood. It looks like it's also a Read with Jenna pick that's going on right now, which is very exciting.
Yes.
Um, Another one on this list that I can't help but bring up because I have a confession to make, and I'm slightly embarrassed about this. I I have only read one Stephen King before. I know it's a problem. I understand. I'm like talking to therapists about it. I've only read King, and it was actually Fairy Tale, which I believe came out
Oh,
last year, and loved it. Obviously, lots of books. I will be buried under my to be read pile is what is going to happen. That is how I will die. But seeing this new one, Holly, that is on the list from Stephen King. Have you had? Is that? Have you?
loved it. It's so good. I think I have Fairy Tale right behind me, which I absolutely loved. I feel like Stephen King is kind of having, I mean, it's not that Stephen King is never not having a moment, but
But he's Renaissance of
he
sorts.
really is. I feel like he's kind of going back to his roots in the style of writing and what he's doing. And even though Fairy Tale is really different from Holly, Fairy Tale feels so much, I just loved that whole style and the kind of fantasy element to it. And now Holly kind of goes back to his horror roots.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big, like, I can't take a lot of, traditional sort of dark, gruesome horror,
Yeah.
but he is so smart in the way he does it. And the characters in this one, it's this elderly couple, and they're the ones that are committing these horrible crimes. But of course, yeah, it's there's some creepy parts in it, no doubt, for sure. You sort of think like, oh, ugh, but he does it in such a great way. I burned
What's
through that one.
the gore factor on Holly?
The horror factor,
The gore,
the
G-O-R.
gore.
Gore.
Oh, well, it's
Set me up.
um,
Let me know what I'm getting myself into.
well, let's just say there's cannibalism involved. But it's very, it's like Julia Child style cannibalism. So it isn't just savage. it's it's refined cannibalism, and there's
We're
a purpose. There's
watching
intent.
of Yellow Jackets, so I feel like I'm proud of this. Like I got this.
Perfect.
Holy
Perfect.
Holly. Okay. Number one. Well, I know this is not in numerical
Mhm.
order, but however, at the top of the list as we scroll is Happiness Falls by
Yes.
him. And I'm very drawn in by this cover. And I have yet to pick this one up, but I feel like this is maybe the top of the list of the books that I want to pick up. What can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yes, and this is our number one pick for September. And this was so good. She's a really great writer. It's just that style of writing that you fall right into. And it's a story of this family. The son, there's two twin siblings who are college age, and then a younger son who has Angelman syndrome, which is where he's unable to speak.
Okay.
And so the father and son Eugene go to the park. Whatever, Eugene comes back, father's gone, so he's disappeared. The family's trying to figure out what's happened to him. Is he alive? Is he dead? The police are involved. And then it becomes this story, not only a mystery about what happened to the dad, but also more about the youngest son, about Eugene. And it's about our biases and kind of the way that we perceive people and what their abilities are based on that perception. The author talked about a little bit afterwards, Angie Kim, about how being a non-native speaker, that non-English speaker, that people would assume that she couldn't understand them. So, while she could understand it better than she could speak it, but people made all of these assumptions about her cognitive abilities, basically.
Mhm.
And so that comes into play a lot in this story about Eugene. And there are so many moments of reading this that are so moving and powerful and make you think about your own life and your own perceptions or judgments. And it was really a really powerful, moving read.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to go pick that one up next, I believe. Um, okay, so I'm just going to show the cover of this book first because I would be curious if people, if this is reminiscent of another cover. I mean, the author might give it away. If this is reminiscent of a very, very famous book that came out a while ago, if we're looking at this, maybe some of you have heard of The Knicks. It
Yeah.
was a massive hit. How long ago was The Knicks now?
I was trying to remember that. It's been since I've been at Amazon because I loved that book too. I want to say like 5 years, but
What is
I
that?
don't.
Okay,
It may be
wow.
longer than that.
And this is his newest book, Wellness, Nathan Hill.
Mhm.
And I always get a little nervous when an author has a follow-up to something that was so iconic, that was so beloved, because you want to go gobble it up, but there's just such high expectations when you go in. So to read
It's good. It's really worth it.
okay.
It's yes, another fantastic writer, and it's so interesting. I think this month because both like Happiness Falls, there's also this whole thing about happiness and about what makes us happy, and he talks about or she talks about the one of the characters sort of our baseline for what makes us happy and that balance of striving for more and also being happy with what you have. And wellness also looks at happiness. And in this situation, where happiness falls is more in a family dynamic. This is a relationship and it's a love story. It's this couple that sort of falls in love at first sight. And that's the story they tell their friends, themselves. But over time, things change and your lives evolve. And it's so good to I love books where you go backwards in time and see how that character evolved and came to be.
Heck
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And in this case, they went from being these people who were super hip and young and they'd go see new bands, and then all their friends start getting married and they get married and then there's kids and then their lives change and you're trying to find your mojo again, both as an individual and then together. It's so good.
So it sounds like a very honest assessment of what aging in relationships is actually like on the inside, as opposed to this external, like, oh, we're great, we're happy, everything's wonderful and stays the same.
Yes. And that whole idea of happiness over time and how do you maintain it, and our society too that is so we want a quick fix,
Yes,
like just
we are. That.
isn't there a pill for that? Yeah, so it kind of it touches on that as well.
Word count on this one. Is this another beastie?
Oh, it's a whopper. This is the galley for it.
It,
So it's a
yeah.
big one. I want to say this is, let's see, I have my glasses on, so I can't tell you exactly, but pretty close to six. Yeah, about 560.
Okay.
But it goes
Commitment.
fast.
Okay.
I mean, I love books like that where it might look daunting when you start it and you think, oh man, but then you just can't stop reading and it goes by in a blur.
Yeah,
So
I
this is one of the
love a solid propulsive book, and I have a recommendation at the end of it for something that's wildly propulsive. Um, okay. Also on the list, this could be divisive. We've got Elon Musk,
yes.
and the very serious mug on the cover of this. I can't totally say that this is going to be on my list. However, I try to. My wife reads all of the nonfiction, memoir, and fiction as well, but I feel like she'll probably gobble this one up. And I love that it's the description here is pugnacious tweets. I think pugnacious is one of the most underused words in the vocabulary that I am going to try to bring back. I also have a pug mix, so maybe I love it because of that. But what can we expect from this Elon Musk book?
Well, first, I totally agree with you on pugnacious. I clearly do not use that word enough and need to introduce that to my vocabulary a little heavier, but we'll see. um, I had real mixed feelings about Elon Musk and had never had any huge desire to dig into his personality. But Walter Isaacson is such an amazing biographer, and he did the Steve Jobs book. And so, and Elon Musk is fascinating. He's just so, you know, you kind of can't help. It's like the train wreck you can't not watch. And so it's it is really interesting. No matter what your feelings are about him going into it, about Musk going in, I think you will change your mind and then change it back again. He's just he's a genius, but he's also kind of out there. I mean, he does these crazy, crazy things, but you really learn
Face.
why.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But you actually get a sense that you know him after reading this book. You know, Isaacson spent 2 years. My colleague Lindsay Powers just did an interview with Walter Isaacson that's on the Amazon book review. And it's interesting. I mean, he talks about shadowing Musk for 2 years, like going to all the meetings, all the things, and interviewing all these people who are close to him. And he had a really rough childhood. I mean, some of the stuff that he went through, you know, I don't know how anybody comes out of that with their sanity intact and with a heart and everything else. So once you sort of get that background on him, a lot of what seems so crazy makes some kind of sense in a way.
Together, sure.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this that he covers the transformation from Twitter to X. You know,
X. No.
I'm so
He goes all the way back. I mean, that was, you know, one of the interesting things about him, about Musk too, is just his desire for more and the next thing. And I thought it was super interesting too, because he has always had this fascination with X as being a naming for his companies. He's tried to name other things
really
that in the past. Yes, there was one that he wanted to name like X. I don't even remember what it was, but yeah. So that's clearly kind of a theme for him and his kids. But it's Isaacson tells a story in such a fascinating narrative way that you really feel like you're right there. And he kind of brings himself in sometimes too. So he'll talk about how Musk's dad kept like, "Hey, I'm available anytime you want. You know, I'm around." You know, and so you get a little bit of his own reaction and emotions into the story too, which I always think is interesting.
oh my God.
It's not just outward looking.
If the next book will be the therapy sessions that Isaacson had to go through after
I
spending
know.
years with
I know.
Musk.
Yeah. 2 years. I mean,
that is a level of commitment that I will never reach when it comes to writing, that's for sure.
I know.
Okay, big shift. Bright young woman, Jessica Knoll.
Oh. So
another very exciting cover. Jessica Knoll,
yes.
I felt her during COVID. We connected and was enjoying, she went through this big cooking phase during 2020, and she had this amazing bulldog that she loved so much, who has since left us. And so I was just very charmed with her as a human, and then started reading her kind of, you know, Gillian Flynn-esque work, perhaps. Maybe that's, I think that's a decent comp.
Yeah.
But excited to see this new title coming out from her. I have not gotten my hands on it. I don't think it's actually published yet, correct? I believe it comes out next week?
Yes. The 19th.
The 19th.
Comes out on the 19th. Yes.
What?
And it is just a great cover. I have the galley for that too. So yeah, look at this.
Beautiful.
So good. She's another great writer. I mean, like I said, September is ridiculous with good books. It's nuts. Deep. It is deep. And these are just the top ones, you know, then there's a whole nother layer. But this one, I mean, I'm kind of fascinated, well, as we discussed, I'm kind of like the dark side of things too. So this is all about a serial killer, and it's based on Ted Bundy. And it's about these two women on either side of the country who are, you know, deeply close friends, or in one case, like a relationship with a victim of this serial killer. And they end up coming together and, you know, being involved in his case. And it goes back and forth in time as well. So it goes from, it's in Florida and Seattle and Colorado. And it's so interesting to see. I know a lot about that about the Bundy
Sure.
case and the serial killings and stuff, but the perspective of this is so good because it really points the finger at the victims and what's going on with them and what their lives were, instead of all this focus on
The
the
glory
killer.
on the killer.
And
hmm
yeah, and like in this case too, and it really made me want to go back and research a little bit more about Bundy. I never watched the Bundy tapes or any of that, but I'm kind of curious because the killer in here, he's kind of an idiot, but
Interesting.
the
Had,
yeah, but yet
well, aesthetically suave
yes,
from my recollection of him.
yes. But even that, it's like, is he that good looking, or is it just
Or
that
just good
people?
for a serial killer.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
And it made me think about like, is there ever a serial killer that the media or people say, oh, he was a complete fool and he did manage to get away with all of this, but he's not that smart, and he, you just don't see it. So the way that we as a society kind of look at those people and shine more of the spotlight on them than the victims really comes through in this story. But I read it, it ended up finishing the whole thing in a night.
oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Jessica Knoll, Bright Young Women. I'm excited. It's just such an important narrative. And, I mean, even if you look at all the popular podcasts that we have, it's often about murders and cold cases. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I get sucked into those as well on a long drive. But
Right.
it's if you put yourself into that position and think that there are actually family members that are attached to these people who are dead and we're listening to it for entertainment, it's humanity, I guess. It's just what we do.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Did you ever read Notes on an
it was an
Execution?
Inky Phoenix pick. I absolutely
Oh,
devoured that book. That was
so you will love this.
phenomenal.
If you love
Okay,
that book, you will
wondering if
totally love this.
for this book. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing.
And just such a unique structure. The narrative was so talk about like jumping back and forth and understanding the mind of a killer and all the women who were affected by the killings.
Yes. And she's Jessica. I totally agree with you. I met her. She was out in Seattle in January, and she is so delightful. Just one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And she came out and was going. She was here for a conference, but she wanted to go to Lake Sammamish because she hadn't been there before, and that's one of the places that's in the book and was that Ted Bundy abducted one of his victims from. And so the day she went out there, it snowed, which is really unusual here, and so there's like nobody around. And she sent me an email later. She said she had gone to the lake and it was really, really eerie with the snow and there was no one around. And she kind of walked around a little bit. She was walking back and she sees this guy, like lone guy, walking towards her on the beach. And she started getting that, like, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it turned out to be nothing, but it was one of those moments of where she probably, I think she really felt like the whole
Put,
experience.
put it in the writing.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
are there any other titles that we haven't covered yet that you're like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about this one?
Let's see. I think those are probably my top favorites. I mean, gosh, there's so many good ones.
Gold sounds really interesting to me.
Which one?
It looks like The Golden Gate by Amy Chow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I'm listening to that on audio right now. I'm a huge audio person,
Mm-hmm.
so that's part of how I read a lot. Is I always have at least one or two audiobooks going. So yeah, that's really good so far. I'm almost done with it. And set in San Francisco, and it's kind of crime, has like a little noir feel. Loving it.
Love that.
Yeah, yes. I also want to hear about Shark Heart.
Oh,
I'm
Shark Heart.
excited for that.
Yes. So Shark Heart is the current pick for the Inky Phoenix, my book club. And it is truly unlike any book I have ever read before. It's the structure. She takes inspiration from the theater. So it's kind of set up in different acts and we get different perspectives. And each act, we just spoke with her on our podcast Free Cookies, and that episode will be coming out in a couple weeks. But she gave this great imagery of each section kind of being like, oh, and the curtain lifts and the curtain descends. So we're these audience members that are experiencing it. But the way that she writes it, you know, often the page will have 2 sentences on it, and then you go to the next. So when I say propulsive, literally, I mean, you can get through this book. For a larger book, you will read it quite quickly. But the concept, if you haven't heard about it, is this, man, we're living in a version of our world where some people get these diseases, for lack of a better word, where they morph into a creature, an animal. And her husband, the main character's husband, gets the diagnosis of he's going to morph into a great white shark. So you are experiencing the trauma that's happening in their marriage, what's going on in his personal life, what he feels that he will never fulfill because he's going to turn into a shark. And it's so risky. She took so many risks with the concept, with the style of her writing, and just did not follow any trends or norms. And I respect her so deeply for doing that. It's nice to see an author go out on a limb and just do exactly what is coming from their mind and their heart, instead of feeling that, oh, this is what's going to be bought or auctioned. And she slayed it. It's just a gorgeous book. And you could easily read it in one sitting if you committed to it. Not that I recommend blowing through a book that quickly, but it's just truly beautiful. And Emily is an absolute delight. And I'm so excited for people to get to hear from her in a couple of weeks when we have her on the podcast, or start research her, Google her, go look at all of her books, or not books, the book, all the conversations she's been having so far.
That sounds amazing. I love that too, when an author does something unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's with the narrative or killing off a character or just a different style. It's just so delightful and exciting.
It is. And I cried twice in the book, which is not super common for me. So she really kind of unexpectedly just hit you with that deep, deep emotion. And I love when an author can get to that level of relatability, even when someone's transforming into a shark.
Absolutely. I'm a big crier, so I better I'll get the big box of Kleenex.
Time to dive in. Is there any way you can tease October books, or is that a...
Yeah, we don't. October 1st is when we'll share the best books of October. So there's a lot coming up, and then also coming up, we'll have our best books of the year in another couple of months. So that's always really exciting.
And is there any voting that gets to happen with that, or?
Oh, yes, okay. Yes. For every month that we pick, when we pick the books, we vote. So we all get together, everybody reads, we read books that each other are really excited about. You know, we all kind of champion our favorites, and it's really fun. You know, just talking to people who love books and who can tell you about a story that makes you really want to read it, and then you kind of go back and forth arguing the merits of each of them, and why they should make the list. And it's a good time, but it's also, you know, there are moments when it's like, oh, I really wanted this one on the list, but
no,
you have to let it go.
Yeah, that's so hard.
It is, but it's a democracy. So, you know, at the end of the day, vote it out.
For people who want to continue following these lists, you can obviously follow here on Instagram at Amazon Books. You can go on to Amazon.com. Looks like / Amazon Book Review is the
Amazon Book Review, or Best Books.
Or go to Best Books, so you can check it out.
Yeah, Amazon / Best Books.
Amazing.
And that has the list, that has all the lists, like all the children's books that I pick every month. And then we have all of our biographies and memoirs, history. That's the great part, is even if something isn't on our overall top 10, you'll still find really fantastic books in every category.
I love that. Thank you. Yes. That's great. And if anyone wants to join the Inky Phoenix, you can go over to @the_Inky_Phoenix. We are now a subscription site founded by Bindery Books. It's new, innovative, it's really exciting. And I will be publishing books through Inky Phoenix Press. So if you want to be part of that process, come check it out and you can learn about it over there. And Seira, thank you so much for taking the time. I just love
Thank you.
talking with book lovers, and I will be following your list closely from here on out. I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, I'm excited to read Shark Heart. Thank you for that recommendation.
About it. I want your full review.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You have to let me know what you think about. I have given you a lot of reading here. You got
God,
Holly. You got
go with first.
Right Young Women.
First, what do I do? What do I do? What do you think?
Kind of depends on your mood. Like, if you just need like a deep mystery, go for the Jessica Knoll. But that's next week. So this
Classic.
week, Happiness Falls.
Do I want to start there?
I know. I know. That's the beauty of books, right? Any mood. There's always something.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well,
Great.
thanks for sharing yourself with us, and have
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.